One of my phone consultation clients expressed considerable astonishment that he had been able to realize so much uninterrupted progress with heavy-duty, high-intensity training. And I explained to my client that such should not be a surprise, that there's no mystery to any of this, that people have been growing muscles beyond normal levels for at least 10,000 years, that we live in a knowable, rational universe of absolute clear-cut identity, guided by one set of immutable, never-changing principles, and that the cause and effect relationship between intense exercise and muscle growth has been understood for quite some time, even though the majority of self-styled experts in this field fail to grasp it. I concluded by pointing out to this individual that it is reality and its laws, the laws of nature, that dictate the causes which must be enacted to affect the buildup of muscle mass beyond normal levels, and that once these causes are clearly understood, the task of developing bigger and stronger muscles, in fact, while requiring high-intensity effort, is really quite simple. In this context, the exercise scientist would concern himself with the volume or number of sets being performed. Now, since people who perform no weight training have muscles of normal size, and those who perform some resistance exercise usually do grow larger muscles, perhaps growth stimulation is directly related to the volume. It's not an illogical or irrational place to start an investigation. That's where I would look. That's where I looked. And 80 better still, and 120 sets better still, and so on into infinity. And that's where we find ourselves. There it is, the obvious tenuity, the monumental absurdity of the volume argument, all wrapped up in a singular childlike notion that more is better. It is erroneous, illogical, non-productive, and even counterproductive. The best way to explain a highly abstract principle like intensity is to go to a concrete example in perceptual reality. Let's assume hypothetically that every one of you here today is capable of curling a 100-pound barbell for a maximum of 10 reps to failure. Obviously, audience, the first rep of that set would be the easiest. Or to be more technically precise, we would say the first rep requires the least intensity of effort. The first rep does fatigue you a little bit, however. That's why the second rep is always a little bit harder. Whereas the first rep may require on the order of 8 or 10% intensity of effort, the second rep you see may require 15 or 20% intensity of effort. Without belaboring the issue, you know that's how it goes with each successive rep of the set. Each one becomes harder to complete, requiring a more intense effort than did the preceding, until finally we get to the last possible rep in this hypothetical case, again, a set of barbell curls to failure at 10 reps with 100 pounds. The last rep would be the only one where we say it requires literally 100% intensity of effort. You're gritting your teeth, you're shaking all over, and you barely get the bar to the top. Now I ask you, which repetition of that set is more likely to stimulate an increase in strength and muscular size? The first rep, which is the least intense, or the last rep, the hardest one? The only rep requiring 100% intensity of effort. Executing that last, almost impossible rep causes the body to dip into what's called its reserve ability. And since your body only has a small amount of reserve to draw upon before depletion occurs, the body protects itself from future assaults on its reserves by enlarging upon its existing ability through the compensatory buildup of more muscle mass. Only high-intensity training can force the body to resort to its reserve ability sufficiently to stimulate an adaptive response in the form of a muscle mass increase. Repeating tasks that are well within your existing capacity do absolutely nothing to stimulate growth. Ending a set before failure just because an arbitrary number of reps have been completed will do nothing to stimulate an increase or induce growth. Carrying a set to a point where you are forced to utilize 100% of your momentary muscular ability is the single most important factor for increasing strength and size. Working to a point of momentary muscular failure, where another rep is impossible despite your greatest effort, ensures that you pass through the breakover point, or that point in the set below which growth is not stimulated and above which you growth is stimulated. Even the detractors of high-intensity training theory would be forced to admit that the last rep of a set to failure is more productive than the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. Thus, without realizing it, they have embraced the first principle of the theory. A few individuals have raised the intelligent question as to whether it is actually necessary to train to failure, where 100% intensity of effort is required to complete the last rep. The problem here, however, is one in measuring intensity. There are only two possible accurate measures of intensity: 0% when you're completely at rest, and 100% when you're exerting yourself maximally. So, as long as you are exerting yourself with 100% intensity of effort, the point is, you have passed through every possible breakover point and growth will be stimulated. One of man's specific physiologic characteristics dictates that the training stress must be cautiously regulated in terms of both volume and frequency. It is his strictly limited recovery ability. The human being does not possess an infinite capacity for tolerating the exhaustive effects of intense physical stresses. This fact is what led Arthur Jones to state, and I quote, "It is only rational to use that which exists in limited supply as economically as possible," close quote. While the principle of intensity must be understood as the first requisite for understanding anything else of value about exercise, the fact of a limited recovery ability is the next key concept that must be grasped in the logically interdependent hierarchy of scientific knowledge and exercise. It is only on the basis of knowing that the body has a limited recovery ability that one may understand why the volume and frequency must be cautiously, even hyper-cautiously regulated. I had no doubt that this was the key once you understand intensity. This is the key to understanding exercise science and the key to the perfect, proper, appropriate application necessary for unbreached, spectacular progress. The issue of volume or number of sets. The issue of volume is a negative factor, negative with a capital N. In other words, to the extent to which you work out, perform a number of sets. Volume is a negative because for every set performed, there is caused a deeper inroad into recovery ability. For every set performed, more and more of the body's limited reserve of resources is used in the attempt to recover or compensate for the merely exhaustive effects of the workout, leaving that much less left over or available for overcompensation in the form of muscle growth. Now, in order to better understand the concept inroad, merely visualize it as the term clearly suggests, an in into the road or a hole being dug. You perform one set, you dig a small hole. You do a second set, you dig a deeper hole. A third set, it goes deeper still, and so on. Because for every set you do, the deeper that hole gets, then that much more of your body's resources will be used, or you could say wasted, in recovery, overcoming the deficit, the inroad, filling the hole, leaving that much less left over for building the mountain on top of the muscle. Mike, would it really make a difference if I did a second set? Would it be a mistake? And I realized not all that long ago that in fact, going from one set to two sets is the biggest mistake you could possibly make. It's not just a mistake, it's the biggest mistake possible. Because going from one set to two sets is not merely a linear or sequential increase of 1 unit. It represents a 100% increase in the volume of the exercise. You just doubled the exercise, and therefore you doubled the inroad into recovery ability. So even if there was some advantage in terms of achieving a greater growth stimulus by doing a second set, it would be completely nullified by the fact that you increased the volume that much and made a greater inroad into recovery ability. The single major cause of lack of meaningful progress in this area is overtraining. And if you think I'm overstating it, or that I mention the issue too often in my articles, you are wrong. considering that it is the major cause of lack of progress, because it is the reason most bodybuilders fail to achieve their goals, and because the orthodoxy, along with exercise science, unconscionably continue to evade the point, I'm actually understating it. Bodybuilding is not dying because of drug use, but because Weider and the powers that be promulgate the notion that volume training is the best way to proceed, while not informing you that their champs are taking outrageous quantities of drugs to help counteract overtraining. The majority of bodybuilders today still seem to operate on the notion that their purpose is to go into the gym to see how many sets they can do, how much they can take, or how long they can mindlessly endure. And that is wrong, because bodybuilding is not aerobic. A bodybuilding workout, in other words, audience, is not an endurance contest. Your purpose as a bodybuilder or strength athlete is to go into the gym and intelligently, logically, rationally do what nature requires to trigger the body's growth mechanism into motion and no more. Then get the hell out of the gym, go home, rest, and grow. The big picture in bodybuilding is comprised essentially of two elements of equal value, literally 50-50, not 60-40 or 70-30, but 50-50, with neither of the elements being even slightly more important than the other. The first element, of course, there's no gainsaying it, is the actual workout itself. And the second element, the other 50%, just as important, is the rest period between workouts. And here's why. The workout, you must understand, audience, doesn't actually produce muscular growth. Remember, the workout is a stimulus. The workout merely stimulates the body's growth mechanism into motion. It is the body itself that produces the growth, but only if left undisturbed by further exercise stress during a sufficient rest period. Or in other words, if you don't rest enough, you won't grow enough, if at all. How could anyone know with reasonable certainty how much time need elapse between workouts? Immediately upon completion of a workout, you don't feel the same as you did before the workout, do you? No, you're exhausted. In addition to the personal experience or the subjective sense of feeling fatigued, you're also exhausted in the technical sense, in that a considerable portion of your body's resources or recovery ability was used to fuel the workout. You feel like you're in a hole. There was a deficit created. The first thing that the body must do after the workout is not build the mountain on top of the muscle, but fill the hole, or recovery, we call it. In fact, the completion of the recovery process itself may take up to 5 days or even longer in some cases before the body even has a chance to start building the mountain on top of the muscle. If you train again before the recovery process is completed, you will short-circuit the growth production process entirely. Every bodybuilder of experience has had the experience of performing, let's say, a tremendous leg workout on a Friday afternoon. He breaks all of his personal records, his reps are up, then he intentionally rests all weekend, thinking he'll wake up Monday feeling totally refreshed and recovered, but to his surprise, he wakes up Monday feeling a sense of generalized or systemic fatigue. One of the chief sources of confusion on the issue of frequency is that bodybuilders don't realize that exercise, in addition to having a localized effect on the muscle being worked, also has a systemic effect. Remember, you have to rest long enough between workouts, not just for localized recovery, which actually takes place fairly quickly. You must also allow enough time between workouts to allow for systemic recovery, which can take weeks, depending upon the type of training you're engaged in. This program literally does represent, again, from a certain perspective, throughout part of the training year, a perfect program. I would suggest you start by training once a week, doing 2 different basic workouts. We'll refer to them here as workout A and workout B. Now, a lot of people like conveniently to work out on weekends, so what you would do is on the first weekend do workout A, 7 days later do workout B. Workout A will consist of, number 1, a set of squats, preferably on a machine. If not the Nautilus Duo squat, then perhaps a Smith machine. If you have any problems with your back or you can't do squats for whatever reason, then I would suggest you substitute leg presses. Do one set of squats to failure, 8 to 15 reps. 8 to 15 has proven empirically through observation to work quite well for the legs. After a brief rest, and by a brief rest I mean go get a drink of water, walk around for a few seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, depending upon your existing condition, but rest as little as possible. As soon as you recognize you're ready to go, proceed to a set of close grip, palms up pull downs. And by that I mean your grip should be 8 or 10 inches apart depending upon your shoulder width and your physical stature. Palms up, I mean a curling grip. Your palms are literally facing up. Initiate the movement with extreme deliberation, utilizing no thrust or momentum to get the weight started and to keep it moving. Pull it down to your clavicles under hyper strict control. Pause for a long static count of 2 or 3 seconds and lower under strict control. That's all you're going to do. A set of squats, 8 to 15 to failure, followed by a very brief rest, and a set of close grip, palms up, pull down, 6 to 10 reps to failure. 1 week later, you'll do workout B, which will consist of, number 1, a set of regular, not stiff-legged, but the regular old-fashioned deadlift, or as many of you here seem to enjoy, you might want to use the trap bar. That's fine with me. 5 to 8 reps to failure. After a brief rest, proceed to exercise number 2, a set of dips, 6 to 10 reps to failure. Don't make the mistake of gauging or evaluating the success of any one of these workouts based on pump or soreness. Getting a pump is not important. It feels good, I like it myself, but it's not important. The main point here is you won't know that any one of these workouts was a successful workout until the next time you do that workout. If you're stronger, obviously a positive change took place. And the point there is keep a training journal. Record the date of each workout. List your body weight at the beginning. List the exercises, the amount of weight, of course, and be real cautious and careful about this last point. Accurately record the number of reps.